Assalamu alaikum. Right, I'm going to share with you a way that you can evaluate the quality of any of your relationships. This is how you're going to do it. So imagine anybody in your life and think about a time when they have asked you to do something for them and you've done it. The way in which you know how good or not so good your relationship is with them is not on the basis of whether or not you did what they asked you. It's actually more on the motivation that you had to do what they asked you. Obviously, if someone's asked you to do something and you can do it and you don't do it, well, there's kind of no relationship anyway. But if someone's asked you to do something and you do it, ask yourself, why did you do it? Did you do it because you were afraid of them perhaps, or afraid of the consequence if you didn't do it? So you just obeyed out of fear. Or did you do it because you were hoping for something out of it? If I do it, then, well, maybe they'll like me more, or maybe, I can get some reward out of it. Or did you do it just because there was a relationship of love? It might be love between a spouse or spouses, or it might be love between children and parents, or just the kind of love that you would have with friends, but it goes a bit beyond the sort of transactional kind of relationship, but a genuine relationship. So whether you listen to others, engage with others, do what others say on the basis of fear or hope or love determines the quality or the reality of that relationship. And guess what? It's absolutely no difference when it comes to you and your Lord. There's no difference. And we know that the first obligation upon the believer is to pray. And perhaps you do pray. But if you pray, why do you pray? What's really the motivation? What is it that gets you to get up and actually turn up and stand in front of your Lord whenever you stand in front of him? Is it just fear? Is it actually just the fact that you know that if you don't, there may be negative consequences? There may be punishment around the corner. Or is it hope? Is it simply the fact that I know that if I turn up and pray and I stick with this and I'm consistent throughout my life, I'm going to get something out of it. I'm going to be rewarded. I want to get to paradise. And I know that the first thing I've got to worry about is the consistency of my prayer. And that's why. Or is it just because you love your Lord? Because you have a kind of relationship, a kind of engagement where just because your Lord has asked you to do something, you trust that it's for your benefit, you appreciate who he is, you appreciate his magnitude, his grandeur, and then as a result, you go for it. You turn up not because you are afraid, not because just because you're hopeful, but because it's a relationship of love. Another way to really evaluate this issue about whether or not you pray out of love is to imagine for a moment as if there was no paradise or hell. If there was no paradise or hell, but there was simply the fact that you could have the acceptance and the pleasure of God and to be in his company, but there was no paradise or hell with all of its particular rewards and punishments as we know it, would our motivation change much or not? It's an interesting thing to think about. Of course, hell is there as a potential punishment, and paradise is there as potential reward for all of us, depending on how we do. And that's part and parcel of the wisdom of the Almighty. But it's very useful for us to think about what our relationship would be like were these things not to exist. Would we still pray? What would our motivation be? Would we need to actually dig deeper to find a new level of motivation? Past scholars often commented on this issue of hope, fear, and love as the levels at which we can function with our Lord, but also famously with fear and hope being two wings of a bird, meaning absolutely there is a place in all of our lives for fear. We all have those moments of laziness or apathy where actually fear is a healthy and a useful and a necessary motivator. And of course, on the other hand, hope and the idea of reward and the idea of actually gaining something even material, if you like, is a motivator. These are the two wings of the bird. But what's the head of the bird? The head of the bird is love. It's that head, if you like, that governs the direction, that is the prime indicator of the nature of the relationship and the nature of the relationship that you want to build. You see, hope and fear are not enough, actually, for a sustainable journey. You don't see any headless birds flying around in the sky, right? Hope and fear as the wings are not sufficient. You need the head of love too. And so ask yourself and consider, do I love my Lord? And if it's not easy for you to answer that question with a yes, then you need to think about, well, why not? And then again, it's useful just to think back to any other relationship in your life. If there are people that you love, why do you love them? What is it about the relationships of love that you have that you would describe them, or that they have resulted or they've come about in this situation now where it's a true relationship of love? And typically it's because of the extent to which you appreciate the other, not just in relation to what they do for you, but you just appreciate them as they are, for who they are. And there's things and aspects about them that really inspire you, or they motivate you, or you find pleasing. But is our Lord not like that? Aren't the attributes, aren't the qualities, the actions of our Lord so amazing, so wonderful, so awe-inspiring that they should generate feelings of love? And bring these to mind then next time when you come to pray. How do you implement all this practically speaking? This is how. When you know that the time to pray has come, and if you discern, you find or discover within yourself a feeling of resistance, and it's actually really just to avoid punishment that you're turning up, or it's only because I hope to get something out of this. I know if I pray one, I'll get tenfold kind of reward. Remember, these are not wrong as motivators, but they're not sufficient. They're not complete. The way you can raise your level, the way you can turn up and have a much better quality of prayer and a better relationship with your Lord, is if you bring to mind the blessings that you enjoy. If you bring to mind the aspects of creation that you know of, that you relate back to Him and His majesty and His creativity and His power and His wisdom, and you bring those thoughts and those ideas and those connections into your prayer. And then the words and the statements that you say in your prayer will be reflective of the fact that you feel like you're in this personal conversation with the one that you love. So may our Lord make us people who don't just pray out of hope or fear, but pray out of a genuine love for our Lord. And that's what makes a real salah. How did you find that? I hope it was useful. If so, hit the like button, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel.